Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Come on! Live from Govardhan Hill. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior cowherd boy at the Bhakti Center, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Govardhan Hill. You've made it. We've made it. You know what? The pilgrimage is over. Everybody left except we've got Narayani is here, Catherine A, handstand queen, and Yogeshwari, Cindy Lunsford. They're all here. And tomorrow, guess who we're having lunch with?
Sachinandan Swami.
Close. Mohan Panda.
Oh, Mohan Panda. You're going to go have lunch with Mohan Panda?
We're having lunch with Mohan Panda at Radhakund.
Oh, that's great.
Mohan Panda. Yeah, we're at Govardhan. You know what? Today, everybody left. I tell you, pilgrimage is not a vacation. Everyone felt like, okay, goodbye, everybody. It's almost like we made it through the war. That's what it feels like.
Okay.
We made it. You're still like, ever see those like the Minutemen where they're like carrying a flag and it's all tattered and their clothes are ripped, but they made it. They made it through the war. That's how we feel like we made it. It's over, you know, but in a joyful way. We feel more connected with each other, deeply connected with each other, made like best friends. And it was sweet. It was sad. It was, wonderful. And everybody took off. And we're still here, going to hang it out for a few more days. Excited.
Okay, good. Nice.
Yeah. Today, me and Mara had an official day off.
I thought you were going to say you had your first fight. I thought you were going to say.
We don't fight. Isn't that amazing? We don't fight. I try to instigate them to see, like, she's got to fight about something. She's like, okay, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Maybe if you mess around in her kitchen or something like that. You got to find where her space is that you can't,
maybe poke her in her spot.
Maybe it's
she's just too even keeled. She's more even keeled than you, Kaustubha. You're pretty even keeled.
No, she's even keeled. Yeah.
I've never seen you lose your temper, Prabhu. You sit there and knit all day long.
Don't sit here and knit all day long.
I chastised her though. You think you're so sattvic here? You're knitting at Govardhan. You should be reading transcendental literature. Your knitting is just sattvic. You got to be shuddha sattvic. You got to be beyond the gunas, Mara.
Well, just because she's knitting, that doesn't mean that she's not, where her mind is at is a whole nother thing. Knitting is one of those things where you can be thinking about other stuff while you're doing it, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, we got a lot of, you know what? The announcement of me and Mara dating has prompted lots of
response.
Our ratings shot up. Our comments went through the roof.
Okay, maybe some
I tell you, we really need to organize either a split up or at least a fight, I think.
Okay.
Just for the sake of for the sake of the Bhagavatam.
Okay.
For the sake of getting the word out there to the masses. Guess what? We were at Govardhan Misty Bhandar. That's our favorite Govardhan sweet shop.
Giriraj Misty Bhandar.
Giriraj. There's two now. There's Govardhan Misty Bhandar and Giriraj Misty.
Hold it.
But anyway, we were there.
You shifted your loyalties from Giriraj Misty Bhandar over to Govardhan Misty Bhandar?
No, we actually were at Giriraj Misty Bhandar. But we met a couple of random devotees who were like, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Wisdom of the Sages, Hare Krishna.
You really like it when this happens, don't you?
No, I'm just saying it's getting out there. That's a good thing. I'm not bragging. I'm bragging about the Bhagavatam.
Of course.
We are merely instruments.
That's right.
Anyway. Okay. Any news? Do you have anything exciting?
We need to announce that we're going to be on no show tomorrow, right? No show tomorrow. And then on Monday, we're going to shift times to 8 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, the squad here.
Hold on.
What?
Tomorrow's daylight savings time.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I factored that in.
Well, we're not having the show tomorrow anyway, so.
Right, but I mean, so that means Monday's time will not be 5:30 Eastern time or 5:30 India time for us, right?
We should figure this on.
Because your time doesn't change. Oh.
Right?
Someone
Let's
get to
figure
work
this
on
out
that, and
on
we'll
our
figure it out by
clock.
the end of the show.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on that and let you know.
Work on that.
in the-
Okay, and get
very
back to
soon.
us. That may give you an extra hour. I think it
Or
will.
or take one away.
No, I think it'll give you an extra hour. I think
All right.
I'm pretty sure.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good
Because
to be
you
back,
fall
Kostuba.
back over here in the fall, right? You fall back.
Fall backwards,
That
spring
should give you
forward.
1 extra hour.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, it will be 8. It's in either case, we can say it's at 8 a.m. Eastern
Yeah.
time, right?
We
Okay.
just have to remember.
Okay. So it's Q&A day, Raghunath. Why don't we get into it?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Ready?
Would you
Ready?
Like to, yeah, you take
Ready?
you take it from here because the
Am
question.
I supposed to say a mantra?
No,
What's
the
the-
people are
what's
over there. You invite them over.
Oh, we have people here
That's right.
with questions. Guess what, Kostuba? I was out all day. We were reading the new Iyengar book.
Oh, you got me a copy?
I did not get you a copy, and I did not say that prayer for you
You're
yet.
not doing anything.
But
I'm just begging these simple.
we're going to be at Radhakund tomorrow. We're going to say that prayer tomorrow.
Okay.
And Maharaj gave me that book as a gift.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm not going to re-gift it for Kostuba. We'll get your own new one.
Okay.
Okay. So we have questions from our little squad,
Let's start with Narayani.
the Govardhan Hill squad. Narayani, come on down. This is Narayani from Switzerland, originally from Germany. She's an old hardcore girl. She said she saw Shelter in 1991.
And she's got an angelic upstarts tattoo.
Yeah. Here, come on in here. Narayani, what's your story here? Tell us, no,
Devotee.
don't look at your question. Tell your story. How did you start getting into Bhakti? You were into. Tell us a little bit about your history.
I think I have to blame you.
Keep going. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more wonderful things about me.
No, I was doing a lot of yoga, and I had a yoga teacher who was playing kirtan or mantra music in the background, and somehow I got into that, and yeah, I got more into kirtan. And when you came to the Swiss yoga conference, there was a kirtan after the event, and
Got
I
pretty
met this
wild.
couple who started hosting those monthly kirtans, and from there, there's no way back.
Okay. Narayani's a really good devotee. I just say that truthfully from my heart.
Good teachers.
You didn't give me much credit with that little bio, by the way.
You wanted more
I
self-glorification.
was expecting a little bit more credit than that, but that's
And
okay.
Raghunath
Right.
spoke the words.
Well,
and
I've been
touched
to
my
several
heart and changed my
Trainings
life forever.
with you, Prabhu.
You guys speak to the mic, Mara.
Narayani's given away 5 of her 4 weeks of vacation time to trips with Raghunath.
Yeah.
So I think you still get a lot of credit.
Right.
Which means I have to create another extra week.
You guys get 5 weeks of vacation. That's pretty good.
And she gets 4, but she works overtime to get extra days off so she can go on pilgrimage.
I see. Okay. That's dedication. Let's hear the
She's
question.
very dedicated. And so here's her question. Ready?
Okay. My question, I'm just reading what I wrote there earlier.
Okay.
I was wondering what exactly happens in the spiritual world, because I was reading that when Krishna fights demons, that when they get liberated, they only attain Brahmajyoti, or that impersonal feature of Krishna, but they don't go to the spiritual world. Apart from the case from Jai and Vijay, who went to Vaikuntha, but then they were devotees. So I'm just wondering what kind of leelas are happening in the spiritual world, if there are no such conflicts when Krishna saves his friends and his family from the demons and so on. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe not for everyone. So maybe we should. For us, it does.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Especially people tuning in for the first time today.
yeah. Do you want me to? You want to explain a little bit more?
I don't know what happens in the spiritual world,
Well,
but
no,
I've just
my
heard that
point
there's
is
no.
this.
I heard the demons are only when Vrindavan
on.
manifests on this earth. Is that
Well,
correct?
The point is this: in our theology, our understanding is that we are living in a material realm, which is a reflection of the spiritual realm, and within that spiritual realm, there's part of that realm is Krishna's realm, where he's engaged in his loving adventures eternally, and that within this material realm, sometimes Krishna comes and he it's described that actually that spiritual realm, he brings it right into the material realm, right? He actually brings that that spiritual realm in, and enacts his pastimes here in a very similar way that he does in the spiritual world, and we get to hear of them and see them and meditate on them and understand them, and our hearts can be changed by that. But there's a distinction, and it's said that here in the material realm, when Krishna's enacting those pastimes, that sometimes he's fighting, right? Like sometimes he's, and if you read the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, it's describing, different kind of monsters and demons, they're tagging, he's fighting them. But it's said in the spiritual realm that they don't exist because there's nobody's in that illusion there, right? Nobody has this animosity towards him there. So but it seems to play a large role in what's happening here. So if that's not happening there, then what is happening there? That's the essence of the question as I understand it. Right? Okay, take it, Raghu, go.
I just think I mean, I don't know, I've never been there, but from what I understand, it's just Krishna's adventures, and I'm sure there's, I'm just speculating, I don't know, loving play, just like when the kids go out and play around here, when they see the kids are happily engaged in the playground, there's Krishna. He's creating loving adventures for he and all of his and his friends and his parents and his relationships, and putting himself in situations that evoke more love.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
Well,
Maybe nobody knows.
No. People
Stu
know.
was gonna know. Stu was gonna have an answer.
I mean, essentially, it's the same thing, but just without those particular elements that you were discussing. In other words, that there are no demons there. There's not that.
What if the
fight or
demons
whatever.
make it a little more exciting, though?
Well, he has.
Like, is it boring?
Therefore, they're
Just
both.
like,
It's never boring. No, but there are books written on this. Books. We're talking about the esoteric side of what we believe here now, right? We're not talking
Right.
about like the kind of yogic practices and but actually there are esoteric yogic practices that are meant to meditate on what's going on in the spiritual realm, and there are books written on that by great saints who have that vision, and even down to the minute they describe what's going on there. What's going on at 3:22 a.m. until 5:46 a.m.
It's very interesting. And like all these just like loving arrangements at various places and various groves with various assistants.
Yeah. So there are these relationships. There's the relationship of Krishna with his friends. There's the relationship of Krishna with his parents, and there's the relationship of Krishna with his lovers. With the girls, and those are just like very broad categories. But within those broad categories, there's subcategories. They get very detailed about like within there are different types of friendship. He has friendship with some people that are like a little bit older. He has friendship with some boys that are a little bit younger, and some that are just the same age. And there's all kind of nuances to those friendships, and really because it's all about different varieties of love. And the same goes with the parental love, as well as with that conjugal love, or that those romantic relationships, and they're playing out. It's like constant running adventure. It's like constant running adventure. There's a lot of secrecy going on, hiding out, because with the romantic kind of thing, there's
disguises.
There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of doting with the parents. The parents, their hearts are just constantly melting. There's I don't know if
a lot of tricks.
There's a lot of tricks
right?
going on.
Krishna's doing lots
messages
of tricks.
are being sent by birds. Different things are going on. There's like a lot going
mirrors.
on.
I'm serious.
It's
I'm
never
joking.
Boring.
It's never boring.
And
very more disguises.
But there's a beautiful in the book.
You're not going to recognize my disguises, okay?
In the book, the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami, one of the most important acharyas in our lineage and direct, descendants or followers of Sri Chaitanya, he wrote this beautiful book, and he describes, and it's about one person's gradual journey to that spiritual realm, right? Like to the highest point in that spiritual realm of Goloka Vrindavan, where he enters into Krishna's pastimes, he enters into Krishna's Leela. That's seen as, in this theology, the idea is that's the perfection, right? That's the ultimate liberation, or the ultimate salvation, is that you enter into these loving pastimes with God in a way that's so intimate that you're not even thinking this is God, that you just love this person. And it describes how he kind of wakes up in the spiritual world, and the first thing that he sees is it's like late afternoon, and he sees, the dust is rising and coming from Govardhan Hill, where you guys are right now. He sees just thousands and thousands of cows, beautiful cows, all different colors, and just, and in front of them, there's Krishna and his brother Balaram, and Krishna's playing his flute, and he's glancing lovingly at everyone. And he sees this, and like, he's, the perfection of his heart, has been fulfilled. And he faints, and then Krishna comes up to him, and Krishna's so happy to see him. Where have you been? I've been waiting for you for so long. Krishna embraces him, and then Krishna faints. The God loves him so much, and it's just and his heart is just so moved that Krishna. And when he faints, everybody's like, "What happened to Krishna? Who's this new person, and what did he do to Krishna?" And there's a little bit of commotion, but then like everything kind of gets settled.
Why are all these people fainting?
And then he just enters into the Leela. Krishna goes home. And when he gets home, his mother, she's just been waiting for him to come back all day, in this divine state of loving separation. Now there's a loving union, and she's, you picture the most loving mother that's just like, all out, just doting on her son. She's just pouring her affection, and the gopis are in there, and he's in there. He just enters into it. And at every stage, at every different part of the day, there's beautiful adventures of love going on. That's what we're designed to experience, and that's what's going on there, minus the demons. No demons there. Those are happening here. If Krishna wants a little of that battle action, then he comes here and he does it here. And he's doing both eternally, right? Both are happening eternally. That's the idea. I hope that's helpful.
That's pretty good.
There's the very esoteric side of bhakti is you actually meditate at the different times of day on what's happening in the spiritual world at that time of day. It's like
Kaustubhaji, thank you very much. Apart from what you mentioned, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, is there other book recommendations maybe?
Well, I mean, I would say Krishna book, although that's talking about Gokula Vrindavan, where the demons are, but it's all, it's all the same stuff. That's where I'd recommend you go, is read Krishna book and really hear that. And because there you're getting Prabhupada's explanations. And of course, 10th canto of Bhagavatam, but it's done in such a nice way in the Krishna book.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Narani.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, bring it down, Yogeshwari. Here we have Cindy Lunsford from Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Here she is live. She's part of the Govardhan squad.
There she is. Okay. Hello, Cindy.
Okay. First, wait a second. We want to hear your story. I'm going to just say a little bit about
a little bit more glorification of Raghunath this time, please.
Can you say something good about me, please?
We want to hear about you, but really want to hear you talking about me. Go ahead.
What do you have to say about me?
No, I was going to say something nice about you. Thank you. I was going to say you're very, very famous, popular yoga teacher. She travels around, teaches yoga, teaches trainings all over the world. People love her. Her Instagram account is Hot Cindy Yoga.
I need to change it.
She does. I think Hot Cindy Yoga is a little inappropriate for a Vaishnavi. Change it to sort of like,
I was
appropriate Cindy Yoga.
We ran into Kumari, the beautiful dancer, and she goes, "Oh, are you Hot Cindy Yoga?"
Hi, I'm Hot Cindy.
I was a little embarrassed. So yes, I'll probably change that. I think you've heard my story. I mean, basically, I got here through Asana and Raghu years ago in upstate.
Me?
I know, believe it or not. And I stayed despite.
You're at Govardhan Hill, lady.
I'm in India with him. It's been amazing. So should I go ahead with my question?
Yeah, but she's a lawyer. Did you know Cindy's
I had no
a
idea.
lawyer?
Reformed lawyer, reformed. I no longer practice.
What kind of law did you practice?
General development, kind of grunt work. I didn't do it long enough to aspire to anything.
Okay.
She's no slouch. She's no slouch.
All right.
Okay, Cindy, you having a good time? You had a good time in India?
Great time. Yes. So thank you always to you guys for everything you do, especially Mara and Raghu this time around, just for leading us on this pilgrimage. I'm not exactly, well, because Stu was not here, so I just was thanking them specifically.
No, I
for
totally
that.
get it. Just yeah, those that aren't seeing this on YouTube won't get it, but any case, go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm not exactly in a position yet where I can process everything that has transpired, but as you can imagine, I have experienced a gamut of emotions, some high, some low. And talking with others in the group, I feel I am not alone. It has been a stark reminder to me that spiritual life is not always transcendental bliss. While I hope to keep the highs at the forefront of my mind when I return to America, I would like to ask a question about some of the lows and how to process them as well. What if being in the Holy Land and around so many pilgrims and devotees can make you feel at times unqualified and unworthy to be on this path? Since most of my practice is spent in isolation, I'm not always attuned to where and how I might be deficient, offensive, or even lazy in my practice. Being in such a concentrated practice for these past few weeks and with so many incredible souls, I worry I will leave feeling more doubts than inspiration in my own practice. Is this common? Could you please give me some words of wisdom how I can process this in a positive way?
Oh, I like that.
Okay.
Good question. I'm going to take that first because, do you mind?
Take it and run with it, Raghunath.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way after this trip. I've met so many sort of like evolved people. I've heard from people that are just like, and seen people, and I just know I feel like there are lifetimes ahead of me. And I feel like I'm too old now to even catch up to where I want to be in this lifetime. Like there's no way I can take in the amount of information to be at the place I want to be at. So in one sense, you get a little depressed. I got a little depressed, especially yesterday. And I see the taste people have for Braj Bhakti. I see the taste people have for Govardhan. I see the taste people have for chanting the holy name. I see the taste people have for kirtan. And I just feel like I don't have that taste. I should have that taste. Why don't I have that taste? I should be there by now. And I think the idea that I came to go to bed with in peace was it's progress, not perfection. We always talk about pure. You got to be pure bhakti, perfection of yoga and stuff like that. But it's okay to set the bar high, but understand we're going to fall short. If we fall short, it's because we're jumping very, very high. And I love this. I think it's a 12-step thing. Progress, not perfection. We work on moving forward as much as we can. Perfection will happen when it's happened. And truthfully, I consider that our moving forward, in one sense, it is perfection. We're walking towards that light, even though we may not be fully immersed in the light. And we are like these like gobstoppers. If you remember those candies when you were little, they're like, if you're from Europe, you probably didn't have gobstoppers. Narayani, gobstoppers? No, total blank look on her face. It is like a sucker ball, and you suck on. It's purple on the outside, then you suck it, and it turns red. Then you suck it, and it turns. It's just layers and layers of different candies, but all different colors. So these are layers and layers of our ego, and underneath it is like a very sweet ball in the center. So we have layers to purge, and when we come to the holy place, it's like a massive accelerator. One of our guys, he went through it so hard on a Govardhan Prikram. I was like, Prabhu, don't sweat it. You just burned off lifetimes of karma in that 21-kilometer walk around Govardhan Hill. And that's what it really accelerates your karma. It's like those red shalagram shilas. Ever hear about those, Kostya? The red ones?
No.
You never heard the red shalagram shilas?
No.
They accelerate your karma if you worship them. So they could even kill you.
Wow. Okay.
You got to be
I'll
careful.
keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind if someone hands you a shalagram shila. I had a red one. I picked it up, and it was really cool. I almost kept it from the Gandaki River, and I was like, nope. There's a little piece of red in there. Gave it right back to the river. Anyway, that's my idea. We're accelerating it right now, and it's going to look ugly before. It's going to look ugly first. Like when you're cleaning a house, the house looks messier. When you clean your garage, it looks messier. And that's part of the cleaning process. So, Cindy, you're doing great. Keep moving forward. I want to be more advanced than I am too. You're not alone in that. Yeah. Kostuba,
Yes.
anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Well, when one's new to this, I say this particular path, but I'd assume that it's likely, it's similar in other spiritual paths as well. But when you're new, a common feeling is that I'm super advanced now, right? Like, like the newest, the people that are newest to it, they think, oh,
We call it the pure
this.
devotee syndrome.
Pure devotee syndrome, we sometimes call that. And so an immature devotee, they'll be unaware of their own shortcomings. They'll actually think I'm more advanced than everybody else. It's so embarrassing to think that I've been like that and probably am still like that. Or they'll be aware of their shortcomings, but they'll lose hope and they'll lose their enthusiasm because of like feelings of like shame or inadequacy, right? So where we need to be is we need to be aware of our shortcomings. And at the same time, there's something else that we need to be aware of. Like, in other words, this is the mature thing, right? It's not that we're blind to our shortcomings, but we're clearly aware of our shortcomings. That's healthy. That's truth. That's going to be good for us. But at the same time, there's something else that we need to be aware of. We need to be aware of the spiritual truth, right? The truth that I am composed of spiritual energy. By nature, I am pure spirit, right? That's who I am. So it's not a question of whether or not I'm qualified to follow this path. I'm duty bound to follow the path. It's like it's the only thing that makes sense for me to uncover that spiritual, to follow the path until it's fully uncovered. So I need to be aware of the truth of my spiritual nature, and I need to be aware of the power of these practices. As I've seen in the lives of others, I can see, we talk about walking a particular path, like following the path of bhakti, but when you walk the path of bhakti, you're following in the footsteps of others, right? Footsteps of others in the past and footsteps of others right now that are walking the path. And we can see that these practices, if you meet someone that's very advanced, the feeling, and you feel like you're not nearly advanced, the feeling shouldn't be, oh, I'm not qualified to follow this path, but oh, look how powerful these practices work, that people become like this.
Yeah, maybe she should look at it like a yoga student. Like, I'm not flexible. I can't do yoga. What would you tell them? Yeah, you can't. No, you can't.
Right.
You'd be like, no, you got to go start slow, keep trying, show up.
But when you're with I remember when I first went to, I got into practicing asana like relatively late in life. Like I think I was 37 years old. And I walked into Eddie Stern's studio and was like, whoa, like he had like some serious yogis in there, right? And there's two ways you could feel. Either like you could feel like, oh, I can't do this. This is just too much. Or you could feel like, whoa, look at these people. This is inspiring. I want to learn how to do this too. So that's what we need. So we need to be aware of the truth of our spiritual nature. We need to be aware of the power of these practices, and we can see it in the lives of others. And we need to be aware of Krishna's mercy, right? That really, that this is, it's something that even we believe that it's not by our own power that we achieve a higher state of consciousness. That our endeavor is important. We must endeavor, but that ultimately it's a gift. It's given to one, just for trying, just because you make it your heart and your soul, that mercy is granted. So the mature person they get there. The very immature person doesn't even see their own inadequacies, and then another level, someone might see their inadequacies, but lose their enthusiasm, lose hope. But the more mature level is, no, I'm inadequate, but that's okay. That's to be expected. But I am pure spirit, and if I follow this, it will be effective. And ultimately, Krishna is very merciful. And then you go at it with full enthusiasm. It requires enthusiasm. So have that enthusiasm. Right?
When I first went to Vrindavan, my day-to-day realization was everything about myself is fake. I've been pretending my entire life. I am such a faker. Oh my God, my ego is so massive. I've been trying to trick people into thinking how cool I was. And it was all based on me wanting to be liked, me wanting to be appreciated, people wanting to notice me. And it hurt. I mean, it really shines light. Bhakti really shines light. When we talk about self-realization, it shines light on not just what you are, but what you've been pretending you are all these, and how that's not got nothing to do with you. And you've been parading around in this
That's
costume,
all we're doing. Yeah.
just parading around, showing off our costume.
All right.
What did you get those realizations? How come you're so steady, even in Vrindavan? You're like, oh, everything's good. Did you get any deep realizations? Why aren't you crying?
I've had my tears throughout the trip.
About what?
Okay, look at him crying.
I wasn't expecting to be put on the spot to publicly share this probably. Well, I'd rather not.
You'd rather, not. Well, don't you think we learn from
Well,
each other's pain?
Yeah, but we don't have to publicly broadcast it on the spot.
Okay, well, trying to empathize with you, Prabhu.
thanks. We could do it privately if you want to empathize with me.
You don't think empathizing in front of 10,000 people is a big deal?
All right, come on, Raghunath. Next question.
Next question. Okay, good question there, Cindy. Good question. You're not in this alone. Does Catherine A have a question? Did you write one?
She didn't write one.
Oh, sorry. Well, think about it, Catherine A. You might get it. You might just spontaneously ask. Okay, this is from Logan from our Discord thread. Hey, Logan. Kostub and Raghu sometimes reference Hare Krishna 2.0 and a Bhakti Renaissance. We used to say that all the time, actually. What does that mean exactly? Are they referring to cultural changes within the movement, or does this refer to increased interest in Bhakti? What are the potential upgrades or improvements of Bhakti 2.0 over Bhakti 1.0? Is that the end of that one? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah,
Shall I?
go for it.
It seems like, when the Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, was on the planet, everybody just dropped everything, almost like mystically, to follow this man and to create both literature and institution, the culture of Bhakti, which is like ancient in India, and it's integrally woven into their life, and somehow to transplant it all over the world. And it's almost as if they were like possessed by spirit to do it. And in that possession, it happened. But in that possession, it happened at such an extreme rate. It sort of bulldozed through normal life. And I think it sort of needed to happen. But if you talk to these early pioneers of Bhakti, it's like they gave up everything almost blindly. And they were almost like they didn't. Yeah, it was almost, let's become lifelong monks forever. And let's, do arranged marriages and things that were sort of maybe seemed like they said a lot of things that sounded good, maybe perhaps on paper, but they couldn't actually follow through or live up to the standards as, Prabhupada was speaking. And then, of course, there was the, we're all pure devotees. If you're in the temple, you're pure devotee. If you're not in the temple, you're in a type of Maya. So I think what things shifted was things got less out of that passion, which sometimes you need that passion to get things going. And I don't think it could have perhaps been done maybe many other ways. But I think it had a great effect, but it had a bad effect in one sense too, because help me out with this part.
Okay, I'll try. Well, the Hare Krishna movement it's two things, right? One, it's an ancient, it's a branch of a very ancient tradition. At the same time, it's a new religious movement. It's both, right?
Yeah.
Because it was transplanted from one part of the world to the other. So what was a very ancient practice and tradition was brought to the West and became a new religious movement. and that means it's new, and it's just like any human being, you have to mature, you know.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, you know, like Raghunath will speak about, I think you coined the phrase, you know, Hare Krishna 2.0. A lot of times when people are describing the Hare Krishna movement to me, I feel like a lot of times I feel like saying, "Are you living in the past, man?" Because it's not like that anymore. At least not where I'm in it, you know. And so
Yeah.
what I have to remember sometimes is it's a movement that's going through maturation, and it's going through maturation at different rates at different parts of the world, you know.
That's a good point too.
You know, so yeah, so some of the things that we were dealing with, you know, 30 years ago, and in our own world, that's gone. Some people are still dealing with that where they are in their local Bhakti communities, right? So
Mhm.
so you know, I think it's 2.0 in some places, and in other places it's not.
Sure.
But in any case, you know, I would say, you know, going to what you were saying, Rogan, I think one thing about it is that things are easier now. They can be easier, right? It was almost like in those earlier days, it was a kind of like either you surrender your entire life or you're not involved at all. It was
I mean,
kind
I
of like that.
remember there was a nice Indian guy coming to the temple with me when I was, I became a brahmachari, and he didn't. He continued to go to medical school, and I was like, "Are you in Maya? What is your
Why aren't you
problem?
giving your
After
entire life to
all
this
we
right
know,
now?"
why haven't you give up med school yet? Don't you understand? We're about to die. At any moment, death is upon us, and you're wasting your time associating with all these fools who know nothing about, you know, the destiny of the soul."
Yeah. So
Now,
so yeah.
that,
So it,
just 1 sec. So I was going
okay.
to say, is he wrong for, you know, being, or was I wrong? The thing is, being very strict to those very strict principles of being that brahmachari could be right, or you could totally pendulum back into total Maya, which happens a lot. But a person also trying to be sort of take some middle path in bhakti, like, well, I'm going to incorporate it into my life in a more gradual way. They could be swept away by the current of Maya as well. Whereas I was an extremist, and I might extremely bounce the other way. The real metric is, where are you 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, etc. So I think it's become a much more broader gate for people. They don't have to feel like they're in the club or out of the club. There's a community that lives more so outside the ashram than inside the ashram, at least where we live. And there is no mystery. There was a mystery sort of before. It's like you join and you never know when you're quite going to get out. That's it. You just sort of joined. But now it's sort of like people just take Krishna into their life, and they add more and more Krishna to their life. And it seems like more like what the Bhagavad Gita is talking about is how to apply Krishna deeply to my life, yet still be in the material world, but not being a materialist. I think it's quite beautiful what's happening right now.
Okay. Shall I
Yes.
continue with my analysis?
Oh yeah, were you going on with something?
Well, I was, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so in what ways? And you've touched on most of it already, right? That
Right.
back then it was almost like either you lived in a temple or you weren't participating, and you're and let's face it, you know, there was like social pressure to do it. You know, it's like, come on, what are you waiting for? You know, like why
Yeah.
haven't you left your job or left your school or left your family and gotten serious about life? You know, it was that kind of mood or that kind of pressure was there, and then you're expected to become a monk, you know, or like a female, you know, brahmacharini, like a female monk. And as you're saying, there was no plan of transitioning out of it. It wasn't like, you know, oh well, okay, let me do this for the next, you know, 5 years and get a certain training and gain some knowledge and some experience, and then take it to the next stage in life. And along with that, there was a sense of, let's say, embarrassment about like leaving that, like, oh, now you've kind of turned your back on being serious about this, and you're kind of decided that I can't handle real devotional surrender, and you know, I'm going to go back out and, you know, dilute my whole seriousness of my spiritual practice or something like that. So people would be embarrassed, or, you know, or people would be afraid to kind of like openly discuss their own shortcomings or their own struggles. So people would have to put on more of a facade about, like,
It would,
you know.
it's a problem. It's a problem when you can't be sort of straightforward and you create a public persona, but you have a private reality.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what was happening a lot. Is you have to show up on your A game, and the books speak about an A game, yet a lot of people couldn't keep that A game, so they presented an A game publicly.
Yeah.
Yet
And
they had no one to turn to out of humiliation to share their shortcomings. And what you create is you create secrets. We're as sick as our secrets. We create a society of secretness, and that becomes a problem. It becomes like almost like a psychological problem. And so we do need, to this day, even in 2.0, you need outlets. I really feel like this is good with Bhakti Recovery Group. We need outlets where we can share our deepest and our darkest with people who can hear from us in confidence. And that's how we heal. Otherwise, we bury it, and we bury it deep, and we explode one day.
Yeah. So that's part of it. I think it was, and you know, I was going to say to that I think the symptom of an immature spiritual group is that people just disappear from it, right? It's like they're there one day and then they just disappear because they are too embarrassed to discuss it, or there is too much pressure, you know. Like, it should be like, hey, I'm having trouble practicing this way. Okay, well then let's help you find a way that you can practice it, you know. That's a mature, and I would say that the 2.0 is more like that, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, also I think it has a lot to do with how we relate with one another, you know, like the how we well, let me put it this way. It was taking a very ancient culture and kind of adapting it with like full on enthusiasm. And when you do that, any immaturity or any motivation, any kind of like, you can use this new culture, to support your own lower nature. Like, for instance, your own anger, your own resentment, your own immaturity, your own insecurities. You know, so for instance, and when that happens, like, it can play out a lot of way in your relationships, like, say, between the sexes, right? You know, or even, you know, because renunciation, it was so much presented in these ancient texts, without any elders to help you understand, you know, just like, imagine like you have a a whole society of people and all the elders are removed from it, like how messy things would be, you know.
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, so it was a bit like that, because it was like all these young people that got into it, taking a foreign culture, trying to understand these teachings about renunciation. Then you apply that in your family life, you apply that in your marriage, you apply that in how you raise your children. And you know, and in many ways, there's, you know, a lot of tragedy, you know, you know, and how children were raised, and in marriages, especially. I think in marriages and how children were raised. I think
relationships between husbands and wives. It was just,
I think there's again, where I live, in my circles in the Hare Krishna movement, there's been a lot of growth in that area.
Yeah.
But you know, I still hear stories, you know, about other people in other places and stuff where there's struggles for that. And another thing I'd say is a more realistic ideas about gurus. You know, there's like a whole era there where, like, we had someone in the form of Srila Prabhupada who's extremely advanced spiritually, right? Who
has cultural depth, who's very knowledgeable.
Spiritual depth, cultural depth, yeah, knowledge, all of this. And then he disappeared, and you know, and like all these young people kind of had to try to follow in his footsteps. But there's a difference between following and imitating. And you know, so there was a lot of, you know, imitation of what he was, and a lot of blindness in following those people who were imitating, and that created, and you know, it took, you know, I say that, and I when I say this, I'm not saying to Chris, I admire the people that carried this out, and I think many of them matured relatively quickly and really played those roles very well. But there were some years where there was like a lot of struggle, and again, in other places, you know, even to today, there's likely, you know, struggling in that area. But these are the things that I would say, you know, it's more mature about our relationships, kinder, you know, hopefully finding that true spiritual essence where we're not, you know, we're men and
Not
women are
social.
relating better together, where adults and children are relating better together, where gurus and disciples are relating to better together with realism and with kindness.
Mhm.
And again, easier, that you're not that you can be living at home, you can be or you can transition in and out of these different stages without embarrassment, able to discuss one's own shortcomings and take it at whatever speed or whatever circumstance makes the most sense for you. Those are some of the things I think
Yeah.
about.
As far as the Bhakti Renaissance, we just see it happening around us. More people than ever
Sure.
in the Western world are diving into Bhakti.
And
And when we were young, it was just a bunch of kids signing up, okay, I don't want to go to college. Maybe I'll try spiritual life. Now we have people like in their 50s, in their 40s, they've had life experience, both good and bad. They've had success, they've had loss, they've had heartbreak, they've had family. When we were little, we had nothing. We had no life experience whatsoever. It's completely green. And the ashram was our life experience. So people are coming in already with deep realizations about the material world. And when they hear a transcendental message, they're like completely ripe to hear it. And also the times changed. The times changed. And things that we always spoke about, regulating your senses, living simply, getting back to nature, simple living, high thinking, and animal rights, or living symbiotic relationships with animals instead of exploiting them. These are all in the public conversation. They were weird, freaky, underground granola tree hugging stuff in the 70s, and now it's like, yeah, of course, you're not on a plant-based diet, huh? Tuba.
yeah, another and about the Renaissance thing, I think it has a lot to do with one, that there's a second generation and now a third generation coming up. In other words, people that took to this in the 60s and 70s have had children and now grandchildren who have been raised in it, and they're extremely talented. So there's a lot of great art, a lot of great music, and not only amongst them, but broader than that too. But it's created a momentum for beginning to generate a lot of art, music, books, eventually, we can imagine film and so on, that's kind of like you can begin to see it like that's kind of taking off.
It's a very exciting time to get into Bhakti, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All righty. Catherine A., what do you got? Anything? No, you can say no, I don't, Raghunath. That's not the answer I'm looking for. Is this the question?
What about that kinder movement we're talking about?
I'm still 1.0 a little. Do you remember here? You want to hear a classic 1.0 move? Is you're a brahmachari every day. You only know this if you're living in an ashram. You're brahmachari, and then the day the brahmachari comes down to the morning program, and he's now wearing white, which means he's no longer brahmachari. Like something happened within 24 hours that he's not, or he was not telling everybody about, but it's all coming public right now. Do you remember those days?
Well, I've seen even friends of mine, I've seen, like, say someone's a monk, right? Like a brahmachari monk, and say they're really sincere and they've really devoted themselves to it. And based on their renunciation, and their dedication, they become respected as a monk, right?
Yeah.
And now that's kind of become their identity.
Right.
That's and that's how they identify themselves. That's their worth. That's their value within the community, and so on. And for them, it may be like, well, you know what? Now I'm having trouble upholding these. And I should clarify that within Eastern traditions, there are different types of vows for monks. There's like a lifelong vows, which in our movement we call that a sannyasi. But there's also like more like a student monk, that I practice this for a certain amount of time. That's like, we call that a brahmachari. So say someone's a brahmachari and everyone's assuming, oh, they're just going to take sannyas and they're just going to live this life of renunciation, and they're thinking, this is who I am and this is how people see me, and it's really how they identify. Then it can be, unless that there's a culture that's very accepting of them changing, then they can feel that pressure. And it can be very hard for them
It could be
to let go. It's like I'm losing my identity.
It's like humiliating. It's humiliating because it's not only like an identity, but it's almost like a position that you can get proud of. I am the leader. I'm very renounced. You're not renounced. That's okay. I can help you. And so if they have to leave that position, it can be humiliating. And I think 1.0 set up a culture where it is quite humiliating. You know, we build ourselves up and we get proud of our renunciation, and then we have to switch it over. Then we're humbled by it, and it's an ignominious retreat, and we have to either disappear completely or put our tail between our legs. And I think it's just not like that much anymore. Matter of fact, a lot less people wear those saffron robes nowadays. At least that's what I mean. I don't know how all these temples work nowadays, but I don't think you can put on saffron very whimsically now, can you?
Well, you see, I think in most parts of the world you can, but like
Oh, you can.
I would think so. In most parts of the world, it's pretty quick thing. But in other places, it's kind of like only when you're a certain level of dedication do you put on that color.
Yeah, it means like a sadhu.
Hmm.
Brady.
All right, I think that's it for today. There's just a couple minutes left, Raghunath.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, that went fast.
Well, there you go.
Well, all right.
What are you up to for the rest of the day there?
What are we doing for the rest of the day? I think we should have some. Well, no, you're not. You're not sleeping in Vrindavan, Yogeshwari. We're going to read some stuff together, all of us. We're going to get together and read sacred stories. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Q&A day live from Govardhan Hill. Hope I'm on. Yeah, I've had a lot on my plate for the last 2 weeks. I hope I'm not all over the place. Forgive me if I am. Tune us. No show tomorrow. Tune in.
Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern time.
Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern time to see Mara knit live once again.
It's inspiring. People are inspired on the chat board to pick up their knitting.
That's right.
Well, some are very inspired by it.
Now, wants to come to Super Soul for a Bhakti knitting retreat.
Let's have a Bhakti knitting retreat.